Some ships are built to be fast, some to be sleek, but these ones are built to be absolutely massive. Join me, I'm gonna count down 15 of the fattest ships on the seas. Starting with number 15, the Pioneering Spirit, the widest ship ever built. The Pioneering Spirit is unlike any other vessel afloat. It's owned and operated by the Swiss-based offshore engineering company AlHaseras. This ship was built not to carry oil, containers, or cargo in the traditional sense, but to lift and remove massive offshore oil platforms and install equally huge subsea pipelines. It's currently the widest ship ever constructed, with a beam of 124 meters or 407 feet and a length of about 382 meters or 1,253 feet. That width is more than a U.S. football field and wider than the wingspan of a Boeing 747 twice. It was completed in 2016 by Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering in South Korea. The Pioneering Spirit was designed for a single extraordinary purpose: to single-handedly remove entire oil platform topsides from the ocean and place them onto barges or dismantling yards in a single lift. This will drastically reduce the cost, time, and complexity of offshore decommissioning, which used to require multiple cranes and months of labor. And it can also install huge topsides in place, essentially functioning as a heavy lift crane ship, but with a lifting capacity that dwarfs any floating crane before it. At full capacity, the Pioneering Spirit can lift 48,000 metric tons, nearly the weight of 5 Eiffel Towers. It accomplishes this feat by using a unique slot between its twin hulls that straddle an offshore platform. Hydraulics and tensioners that are synchronized by computer control allow it to pick up massive structures in just one go, even in relatively rough seas. The pipeline capabilities are no less impressive. It's laid some of the longest and heaviest subsea pipelines in history, there's a joke in there somewhere, including for the Nord Stream 2 project in the Baltic Sea. Beyond its dimensions and lifting capacity, the Pioneering Spirit is a marvel of engineering in terms of propulsion and station keeping. It's equipped with 12 azimuth thrusters, which allow it to maneuver with incredible precision despite its bulk. This positioning system enables it to hold its location without any anchors, which is critical when working around delicate underwater infrastructure. The ship can accommodate over 570 crew and includes everything from operational control rooms and satellite communication systems to full-service galleys and gyms. It operates with a full redundancy too, meaning that most major systems are backed up in case of a failure. While it doesn't carry oil or cargo in a conventional sense, the Pioneering Spirit's mission and massive scale make it one of the fattest, heaviest, and most singular vessels ever built. It doesn't just float, it moves entire pieces of seabed energy infrastructure. No other vessel combines such dimensions with unique functionality, and as global oil infrastructure ages and more offshore platforms require removal, the Pioneering Spirit will continue to do what no other ship can: single-handedly lift the heaviest loads the sea has to offer. Number 14, the TI-class supertankers, the world's biggest oil carriers. The TI class of supertankers, TI Africa, TI Asia, TI Europe, and TI Oceania, represent the pinnacle of oil tanker design and capacity. Originally built between 2002 and 2003 by Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering in South Korea again for shipping giant Hellespont, these ships were initially named Hellespont Alhambra, Hellespont Fairfax, Hellespont Metropolis, and Hellespont Tara. Shortly after delivery, though, they were sold to the Overseas Shipholding Group and Euronav, and renamed. Today, 3 of the 4 TI Africa, Asia, and Europe have been converted into floating storage and offloading units, or FSOs, while 1 TI Oceania remains available for shipping crude oil. Each TI-class ship is classified as a ULCC, that's an ultra-large crude carrier, and it measures an astonishing 380 meters or 1,246 feet in length, with a beam of 68 meters or 223 feet, and a deadweight tonnage of about 441,000. Now, these are dimensions so immense that only a few ports in the world can even accommodate them. Fully laden, they sit so deep in the water, like 80 feet of draft, they cannot pass through the Suez Canal or Panama Canal. And as a result, their voyages are carefully planned go-around deep-water anchorages and open ocean routes, typically carrying crude from the Persian Gulf to Asia or Europe. When they were built, they were the largest ships of their type ever constructed, and since the retirement of the legendary Seawise Giant, later known as Knock Nevis, Though they were eventually eclipsed in gross tonnage by some container ships and LNG carriers, the TI class still holds the record in terms of crude oil carrying capacity. Each ship can carry over 3 million barrels of oil on a single trip, roughly the equivalent to a daily output of major oil-producing countries like Kuwait or UAE. Despite their size, though, the class was built with safety in mind. Each vessel features double hull construction, a standard required after the Exxon Valdez disaster in 1989. They also include inert gas systems, advanced radar and navigation arrays, and powerful pumps capable of unloading or loading massive volumes of oil within hours. Their diesel engines produce over 50,000 horsepower, and they drive a single massive propeller that moves the ship at a cruising speed of around 16 knots. These vessels are not just large, they are floating economic levers. And when oil prices swing and storage becomes valuable, the TI-class tankers become vital for nations and companies looking to stockpile. That's why 3 of them were converted into permanent FSOs, anchored offshore as static oil storage and transfer units. That's really useful for regions without any deep-water ports. Just the presence of a TI-class vessel is overwhelming. Viewed from the deck, the bow stretches like a runway, and the main deck feels like a flat industrial desert of valves, hatches, and piping. From above, they appear as elongated red behemoths cutting through the sea, and they're dwarfed only by the scale of the oceans they traverse. Number 13. The Emma Marisque. When the Emma Marisque was launched in 2006, it did redefine what a cargo ship could be. At the time, it was the largest container ship ever built, ushering in a new era of ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, that would go on to transform global trade. Built by Odense Steel Shipyard in Denmark and operated by AP Møller Maersk, the ship measures an enormous 397 meters or 1,302 feet in length, with a beam of 56 meters, 184 feet, and a deadweight tonnage of over 156,000 tons. The hull can carry more than 15,000 TEUs, that's 20-foot equivalent units, depending on the container weight and configuration. But when the ship was first in Maersk's E-Class series, it was notable not only for its size, but for its fuel efficiency and its advanced tech on board. It featured a state-of-the-art engine, one of the most powerful diesel engines in the world at the time, producing more than 80,000 kilowatts or over 109,000 horsepower. The engine drives a single slow-speed propeller, allowing the ship to cruise at about 25 knots. That's pretty fast for a vessel of its size. It also employs waste heat recovery systems which capture exhaust energy and converts it into additional propulsion power. This innovation reduces its fuel consumption by up to 12% compared to older container ships. It was an early example of how shipping companies could reduce emissions and operating costs through integrated efficiency improvements, years before the IMO's stricter emission standards were introduced. When fully loaded, the Emma Marisque has a draft of nearly 16 meters or about 52 feet, requiring deep water ports with specialized berths and cranes. The deck spans the size of 4 football fields with rows of containers stacked up to 8 levels high above the deck and more below. From a distance, it kind of resembles a floating skyscraper of steel boxes, and up close, its hull is so long and tall that dock workers have to use lifts and long ladders just to access the lowest levels of the stacked containers. While it's since been surpassed in raw capacity by newer Tripoli and Megamax ships, the Emma Marisque remains one of the fattest and most important ships in the evolution of maritime logistics. But in addition to those physical features, the vessel is equipped with some extensive navigation and automation systems too. Crewed by about 13 to 20 people depending on the voyage length, it includes everything from automated ballast systems and electronic chart display to anti-piracy infrastructure. Despite its huge scale, it requires relatively few human operators, an example of how far marine engineering and control systems have come. Number 12. Royal Caribbean's Wonder of the Seas. If ships were measured not just by size, but their ability to be a floating city on the water, then the Wonder of the Seas would be unmatched. Operated by Royal Caribbean International, the Wonder of the Seas is currently the largest cruise ship in the world. It measures 362 meters or 1,188 feet in length and 64 meters or 210 feet in width. Plus, it weighs over 236,000 gross tons. This floating leviathan can carry up to 7,000 passengers along with 2,300 crew, bringing its full population to over 9,200 people. That's more than some small towns. Built in France and entering service in 2022, the Wonder of the Seas is the 5th ship in Royal Caribbean's Oasis class. It contains 18 decks, including 8 distinct neighborhoods of sorts, each with a specific theme and function. These include the Central Park neighborhood, complete with over 20,000 live plants, the Boardwalk with carousels and hot dog stands, and the Suite neighborhood, featuring exclusive pools and dining. Inside, it's a marvel of extravagance. It includes multiple theaters, a water park, 2 surf simulators, an ice skating rink, a 10-story dry slide, laser tag arenas, escape rooms, and over 20 restaurants and bars. From a distance, it does resemble a massive white wedding cake rising from the ocean, but from inside, it feels more like a luxury resort than a ship. Powering this floating resort are 6 marine diesel engines that collectively generate over 96,000 kilowatts of power. The ship is driven by 3 propulsion units that allow for maneuverability despite the colossal size. It also features an automatic dynamic positioning system that lets it hold its place in open water with GPS-based precision, removing the need for anchoring in many locations. While the ship's beam, that's the width, technically is less than the pioneering Spirit, the volume, height, and internal complexity of the Wonder of the Seas makes it one of the fattest ships ever built. It's not just wide, it's tall, deep, and packed with more human activity per square meter than almost any other vessel on Earth. From above, the Wonder of the Seas looks like a small island nation. The upper decks are filled with pools, lounges, and walking trails, unlike any cargo or military vessel. It's a ship designed not for speed or freight, but for floating indulgence. As it sails between Florida, the Caribbean, and Europe, it redefines what's possible on the water, not by how fast it can go or how far, but by how many people it can entertain at once. Number 11. The CMA Jacques Sade, the largest LNG power container ship. The CMA CGM Jacques Sade stands out not only for its incredible size, but also for being the largest container ship in the world powered by liquefied natural gas, or LNG. It's owned and operated by French shipping giant CMA CGM. The vessel was delivered in 2020 and named after the company's late founder. It measures 400 meters or 1,312 feet in length, 61 meters or 200 feet in beam, and it has a gross tonnage of about 236,000 tons. And the cargo capacity here exceeds 23,000 TEUs, putting it firmly among the largest ships by container volume ever constructed. Built by the China State Shipbuilding Corporation, it's a series of 9 sister vessels, all designed with one key distinction: they're fueled by LNG. While most container ships rely on heavy fuel oil or marine diesel, these vessels are fitted with enormous cryogenic tanks that store natural gas at about -162 degrees Celsius. This does make them cleaner, producing up to 99% less sulfur dioxide, 91% less particulate matter, and 20% less CO2 compared to conventional fuel-burning ships. The main engine is optimized to run on both LNG and conventional fuel, which does allow some flexibility depending on availability and regulation in the regions. In practice, however, this one uses LNG as the primary fuel, making it one of the few mega carriers committed to immediate environmental impact reduction at this scale. When fully loaded, it draws nearly 16 meters or about 52 feet of water and requires some of the deepest container terminals. Ports like Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Singapore have all been upgraded to accommodate ships of this size, with specialized cranes capable of reaching across more than 24 rows of containers, stacked 9 high on deck and many more below. The ship is longer than 4 football fields, and from above it looks like a steel rectangle with thousands of multicolored boxes arranged in symmetry. The enormous beam also makes it nearly as wide as some cruise ships, and while maneuvering through a port or narrow channel, the vessel seems almost out of proportion to its environment. Despite its size, though, it's highly automated. It features advanced navigation systems, real-time cargo tracking, weather routing, and energy monitoring tools to ensure each voyage is safe, fuel-efficient, and timely. Its crew, typically around 25 people, operate a floating factory where constant optimization is the norm. The ship was also a landmark symbol of European ambition in greener shipping. When it made its inaugural call at Rotterdam in 2020, it was hailed as the start of a new era, where ultra-large container ships could also be climate conscious. The vessel's design includes a smart hull shape and electronically controlled engine that functions to maximize its efficiency. Number 10. The USS Gerald R Ford, the heaviest and most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. The USS Gerald R Ford, or CVN-78, is the largest, heaviest, and most technologically advanced aircraft carrier in the history of naval engineering. Commissioned into the United States Navy in 2017, this supercarrier weighs in at about 100,000 tons of displacement. It stretches over 337 meters or 1,106 feet in length and has a beam of 78 meters or 256 feet at its flight deck. It is longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall and as wide as an Olympic stadium. With the bulk and futuristic design, though, it represents a new class of warship meant to dominate naval operations well into the 21st century. Built by Huntington Ingalls Industry at Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia, the USS Gerald R Ford is the first in a new class of carriers meant to replace the aging Nimitz-class ships. The massive size allows it to carry more than 75 aircraft, including the F-18 Super Hornet, E-2D Hawkeyes, and MH-60R helicopters, and the new cutting-edge F-35C Lightning II. Powering the Ford are the two A-1B nuclear reactors, providing nearly 3 times the electrical output of the previous generation. These reactors enable the ship to sail for over 20 years without even refueling once, giving it unmatched global range. The electrical power here also drives 4 electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, or EMALs, replacing the traditional steam-powered catapults. The ship also features the new Advanced Arresting Gear system for recovering landing craft, along with over 23 new technologies that improve every aspect of the carrier's operations, from radar systems and electronic warfare suites to automation that reduces crew requirements by over 600 personnel compared to its predecessor. Despite its immense size, though, the ship was designed for efficiency. It features dual-band radar, stealth-mitigating hull design, and a highly optimized island structure to free up more space on the flight deck. The elevators that move ammunition and aircraft parts are electromagnetic as well, capable of handling heavier payloads and operating with fewer maintenance needs. On board, the ship is a floating city. It houses over 4,500 sailors, complete with dining facilities, sleeping quarters, gyms, air traffic control centers, medical facilities, and advanced communication systems. It can operate around the clock in hostile waters, and it serves as a mobile airbase that can be deployed anywhere in the world within weeks. In terms of size and capability, no other warship on the planet even comes close. It's not just big for the sake of scale. Every square meter serves a tactical function. That fat hull conceals not just thousands of tons of armor and electronics, but also the might of an entire air wing and the logistical infrastructure to keep it in the air. From above, the ship is unmistakable. A broad rectangular black deck sitting on a steel gray hull, trailed by the wake that shows the raw power beneath. At sea, it looks like a massive island that dwarfs the escort ships that protect it. Number 9. The HMM AlHaseras, a giant among container ships. Launched in 2020, the HMM AlHaseras is one of the largest container ships ever built, and it represents a major milestone for South Korea's maritime industry. Operated by HMM, formerly Hyundai Merchant Marine, this colossal vessel measures 399.9 meters, that's 1,312 feet in length, 61 meters or 200 feet in width, and has a maximum cargo capacity of 23,964 TEUs, making it the first ship in the world to surpass the 23,000 mark upon delivery. Of course, it was constructed by Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering in Okpo, South Korea. It was part of a class of 12 ultra-large container vessels ordered by HMM in response to growing global trade volume. Now, in raw statistics, the ship is enormous. When fully loaded, it displaces more than 228,000 gross tons. It draws a draft of 16.5 meters, that's 54 feet, and its beam alone requires some of the most advanced port infrastructure in the world. Only a limited number of ports, including Rotterdam, Busan, Singapore, all have crane reach and water depth to handle vessels like this. The ship is powered by a MAN G95 engine. It's one of the most fuel-efficient large engines available, and it's designed for long-haul transoceanic routes between Asia and Europe. It typically operates at around 22 knots, though it can reduce speed to conserve fuel. It also uses scrubber technology to comply with 2020 sulfur emission regulations, a requirement for global shipping. The flagship vessel here is also designed with environmental considerations in mind. It does include real-time energy monitoring, advanced ballast water treatment, and a low-friction hull coating to improve fuel efficiency. The ship's design is optimized for reducing any hydrodynamic drag while maximizing cargo volume. That's a combination that allows it to move huge volumes of goods. From above, it looks like a perfectly rectangular block just moving across the sea, kind of like a Lego. Its upper deck stacked with neatly arranged, brightly colored shipping containers. From the water, though, the ship dwarfs tugboats, pilot ships, and even smaller container vessels that pull alongside it. Dockside, its hull stretches beyond the frame of most cameras, with cranes having to work in coordinated sequence to load or even unload each massive row. Number 8. P&O's Iona, Britain's largest cruise ship. The Iona, operated by P&O Cruises and built by Germany's Meyerwerft shipyard, it's the largest cruise ship ever constructed for the British market. Delivered in 2020, it stretches 344.5 meters, that's 1,130 feet in length, has a beam of 42 meters or 138 feet, and weighs in at an impressive 184,000 gross tons. It's not only one of the fattest cruise ships in the world, but also one of the first in its class to be powered by liquefied natural gas, marking a shift towards cleaner cruising. Designed to carry 5,200 passengers and more than 1,800 crew, the Iona is a floating city with 18 decks, over 30 dining and bar venues, 4 swimming pools, a Sky Dome entertainment venue, and a multi-story atrium with panoramic ocean views. From high-end spas and shopping arcades to theaters and full-scale gyms, the ship provides every possible amenity, turning the experience of cruising into a resort-style vacation on the water. But what truly distinguishes the Iona, besides that volume, is the propulsion system. Using LNG as its primary fuel, the ship emits significantly less nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, and carbon dioxide than traditional marine fuel-powered ships. This makes it one of the most environmentally friendly cruise ships of its size, aligning with the International Maritime Organization's goals for reducing maritime emissions. In terms of layout and guest experience, though, the ship feels less like a cruise liner and more like a floating entertainment district. It's got themed neighborhoods, each offering a different ambiance, from quiet relaxation areas in the Oasis Spa to the lively restaurants and bars found in the Grand Atrium. A standout feature is the Sky Dome, a massive glass dome that covers an indoor pool and transforms into a live entertainment venue at night, complete with aerial shows, lights, and music. The Iona is designed to maximize comfort. It features more balcony cabins than any previous P&O ship, optimized ventilation and HVAC systems, and a low-friction hull paint to improve hydrodynamic performance. The ship is fully stabilized and it can sail smoothly through the often rough waters of the North Atlantic or Norwegian fjords without any excessive roll. But from a visual standpoint, the Iona is sleek and modern, but the bulk is impossible to miss. Docked at port, it towers over terminal buildings and dwarfs the neighboring ships, and from above, its wide decks, pools, and solar panels makes it easily identifiable, even in crowded harbors. Moving on to number 7, the Black Marlin heavy lift ship. Among the world's most massive and unconventional ships, few compare in sheer visual absurdity and scale to the Black Marlin, a semi-submersible heavy-lift ship designed to carry entire oil rigs, warships, and even other ships across oceans like cargo on a floating platform. Operated by Dockwise Shipping, a division of Boskalis, the Black Marlin is one of the largest vessels of its kind and an icon of maritime engineering. Constructed in 1999 in Taiwan, the Black Marlin and its sister ship, the Blue Marlin, were purpose-built for an incredibly niche but vital function in global industry, transporting enormous floating structures and other megaships across huge distances. These vessels have carried oil rigs from Korea to the Gulf of Mexico, naval destroyers from dry dock to active service, and even ferried damaged warships back home for repair. At first glance, the Black Marlin doesn't really resemble a traditional ship. Its defining feature is the ability to partially submerge itself, sinking the entire deck below the waterline so that massive cargo can be floated over it. Once the cargo's in place, the ship deballasts to rise again, lifting the cargo out of the water so it can be transported. This float-on, float-off system allows it to move vessels and platforms too large to be craned or dry docked. Now, in terms of size, it's a beast. It measures 217 meters, 712 feet in length, and 42 meters or 138 feet in beam width. But the deck space is what really makes it fat. It's got a cargo deck area of more than 7,000 square meters. That's enough to carry an entire semi-submersible oil rig or multiple naval frigates. The deadweight tonnage here is over 76,000 metric tons, and it can carry cargo weighing as much as 63,000 tons. Its capabilities were on full display in several high-profile missions. One of its most notable assignments was the transport of the USS Cole, a U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer that was severely damaged by a terrorist attack in Yemen in 2000. The Black Marlin was tasked with transporting the crippled warship back to the U.S. for repairs. With its deck submerged, the destroyer was carefully floated over and secured. Then, over a 2-week journey, the Black Marlin carried the ship across the Atlantic like a floating emergency room. It also supports, of course, the global offshore energy industry. As oil companies build ever larger floating production platforms, the challenge of moving these structures from shipyards to deep-water drilling sites has grown more complex. The Black Marlin has become one of the few solutions that can handle the load. It's often used to ferry topside oil production modules, jack up rigs, and even sections of floating LNG facilities to remote oceans. In recent years, the ship's role has grown in importance with the rise of decommissioning projects where entire oil platforms need to be removed and taken apart. The Black Marlin and her sister ships are crucial for transporting these massive structures. And from an operational standpoint, it does require a unique crew and expertise to run it. Every mission is customized, and engineers have to calculate the vessel's ballast needs, cargo alignment, and structural stress points. It's slow-moving by nature. It's designed for more safe hauling than speed, but its reliability has made it a favorite among defense agencies, oil majors, and engineering firms worldwide. Number 6. The Costa Smalda, an LNG-powered cruise city. The Costa Smalda is one of the largest cruise ships, and its design emphasizes luxury and bulk. It's launched in 2019 for Costa Cruises, a Carnival Corporation brand. It spans a colossal 337 meters or 1,106 feet in length. It features a beam of 42 meters or 138 feet. With a gross tonnage of over 185,000 tons, it's not only one of the largest cruise ships by size, but also among the fattest by volume, housing thousands of passengers across 20 decks. The ship was the first in the Costa fleet to be powered by LNG, making it a step forward in environmental responsibility. But its scale is anything but conservative. It can carry up to 6,550 passengers and more than 1,600 crew members, turning it into a literal floating city with all the complexity that entails. The ship was built by Finnish shipbuilder Meyer Turku, and it belongs to the Helios class, also known in other Carnival brands as the Excel class, which includes ships like the Mardi Gras, that's Carnival Cruise Line, and the AID Anova, that's Ada Cruises. They're all notable for their enormous hulls, wide decks, and high passenger capacity. Inside, the ship features 1,550 cabins, a 3-level central atrium, a full shopping mall, a water park, multiple swimming pools, and a 260-meter promenade deck. This design reflects a ship-as-a-resort concept, where the onboard experience is just as important as the destinations. The ship even contains a museum, the Costa Design Museum, which shows Italian art and industrial design. Propulsion is powered by Wärtsilä dual-fuel engines that can run entirely on LNG, reducing emissions of sulfur oxides and particulates, and these engines supply power not just for sailing, but for every air conditioning unit, elevator, and lighting system on board this giant. It's got a service speed of around 21.5 knots, but its girth and height means it maneuvers at ports with the aid of advanced thruster systems. But what makes it so visually fat is that multi-level superstructure, which expands outward in tiered layers as it rises. From a distance, it kind of looks like a cake stacked with 20 layers. Aerial images reinforce that impression. The top deck sprawls with pools, bars, and solar arrays, and the stern opens up into a grand amphitheater-style venue for shows and sea views. Despite being optimized for comfort and entertainment, though, the enormous volume comes with some challenges. Docking requires special port facilities that can accommodate both its size and the LNG bunkering needs. The beam also restricts it to wide sea lanes, and it prevents access to older ports. Number 5. Globetech Tokyo. In the 1970s, when the global appetite for oil transportation just exploded, so too did the size of oil tankers. One of the most iconic examples was the Globetech Tokyo, launched in 1973. Though now largely forgotten outside maritime circles, this British-built, ultra-large crude carrier was at the time of her launch one of the largest and heaviest ships ever constructed. Built by Ishikawajima Harima Heavy Industries in Japan for the British company Globetech Tankers Limited, the Globetech Tokyo measured 378 meters or 1,240 feet in length and had a beam of 68 meters or 226 feet. At full load, it had a deadweight tonnage of 483,000 tons, putting it squarely in the realm of the world's fattest ships by volume and weight. Its massive hull design was optimized for transporting Middle Eastern crude oil into Western markets. The ship's design was straightforward, but immense, an enormous flat deck with storage capacity for nearly 4 million barrels of oil, supported by thousands of internal frames and ballast compartments. This ship and ships like it were a response to a very specific economic condition: soaring oil prices and a desire to transport oil more efficiently across the oceans. Rather than making multiple smaller shipments, oil companies could reduce the cost per barrel by consolidating into these mega vessels. However, the downside was that very few ports could actually accommodate a vessel like this. Fully loaded, it required a draft of over 82 feet, making docking and passage through shallow waters virtually impossible. The ship was propelled by a steam turbine system that produced over 45,000 horsepower, and it was relatively slow, cruising at around 15 knots. It still consumed huge quantities of fuel and required a large engineering crew to maintain the constant operations. Still though, the raw size made it a dominant force in global oil transport. From above, the ship's shape was unmistakable, an elongated metallic oval with a superstructure that pushed far back near the stern, typical of tankers of that era. It lacked any glamorous features of modern ships, but it was more than a match in terms of displacement. The ship had a relatively short service life. Changing economics and new regulations like the double hull requirement and port restrictions rendered these large single-hull tankers obsolete by the 1980s. Eventually, she was sold for scrap, like many of her class, at the Gandhani shipbreaking yard in Pakistan, a fittingly dramatic end for a ship that once symbolized the upper limit of marine cargo capacity. Number 4. The Harmony of the Seas. When it comes to sheer width and volume in passenger shipping, Harmony of the Seas is a marvel of engineering. It's launched in 2016 by Royal Caribbean International. This behemoth belongs to the Oasis class, a series of cruise ships so large they're often compared to small cities. At 362 meters, that's 1,188 feet in length, and 66 meters or 217 feet in width at its beam, Harmony of the Seas was, at launch, the widest cruise ship ever built, and for a time, the largest cruise ship by gross tonnage in the world. The ship displaces over 226,000 gross tons and accommodates up to 6,680 people, with more than 2,300 crew on board. That means nearly 9,000 people can inhabit this vessel at once. That's a staggering number considering that many small towns have fewer. The ship includes 18 decks, 24 passenger elevators, 2,700 staterooms, and multiple neighborhoods, including a park with over 20,000 live plants. Now, what makes it especially fat in ship design is the dual hull concept. While not a true catamaran, the ship's superstructure and internal layout create a massive cavity down the center line, enabling interior open-air spaces like the Central Park and Boardwalk districts. These open zones increase the beam while enhancing the guest experience, which gives the ship its bulky midsection and footprint unlike anything else on the seas. Propulsion is provided by 3 20,000-kilowatt azipod thrusters and 4 bow thrusters, allowing the immense vessel to maneuver with surprising precision. The power comes from 6 maritime diesel engines that together produce over 96,000 kilowatts, and despite its enormous size, the ship can cruise comfortably at 23 knots across the ocean. Inside, it's packed with features that make it more than a mode of transportation. There's a 10-story slide, a full-sized carousel, a surf simulator, an ice skating rink, and a theater that rivals those found in major cities. It even has a robotic bartender and a zip line spanning 9 decks. And from a design standpoint, it is a logistical achievement and a floating skyscraper. Engineers had to calculate the center of gravity and stability carefully, as this towering height combined with the massive beam gives it a high-profile silhouette that resists the wind and waves differently than traditional ships. Port of calls requires special infrastructure, including deep berths, wide channels, and reinforced piers to handle a volume of passengers and provisioning needs. When docked, it dominates the skyline. It's often larger than the cruise terminals itself meant to host it. Number 2. The Prelude F LNG, the largest floating object ever built. If there is one vessel that embodies the word fat in both scale and function, it's the Prelude F LNG, short for Floating Liquefied Natural Gas. This floating facility isn't just one of the largest ships ever made, it is the largest floating offshore structure ever built, period. Designed to extract, process, and offload natural gas from deep beneath the ocean floor, Prelude is a one-of-a-kind hybrid, part ship, part refinery, part storage facility, and part powerhouse. Commissioned by Shell and constructed by Samsung Heavy Industries in South Korea, it was launched in 2013 and towed to its operational site off the coast of Western Australia in 2017. The Prelude is a monster in every dimension. It stretches 488 meters, that's 1,601 feet long, and over 70 meters or 230 feet longer than the height of the Eiffel Tower. Its beam spans 74 meters or 243 feet, making it one of the widest floating vessels. To give you an idea of the sheer bulk of this thing, it's got a displacement of around 600,000 metric tons when fully loaded. That's more than 6 Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. And yet, despite all that mass, it floats, it processes gas, and it weathers some of the most violent seas on Earth. The vessel was built with a specific purpose, to tap into remote offshore gas fields that would otherwise be too expensive or complex to develop using conventional subsea pipelines and onshore terminals. Stationed in the Browse Basin, about 400 kilometers north-northeast of Broome, Western Australia, the facility is anchored over the Prelude and Concerto gas fields, which contain rich deposits of natural gas and condensate. This liquefied natural gas is then stored in massive insulated tanks within the ship's hull. The Prelude does have a capacity to produce 3.6 million tons of LNG per year, along with 1.3 million tons of condensate and 0.4 million tons of liquefied petroleum gas. To do this, it's outfitted with turret mooring systems, cryogenic pumping, and gas pretreatment units, all housed within this immense hull. It has 7 LNG storage tanks, each of which is roughly the size of an Olympic swimming pool. Those topside modules, essentially processing plants stacked on the deck, weigh over 50,000 tons. Some of the cranes used during its construction were the largest mobile lifting systems ever deployed. And aboard the Prelude, the scale of operations is matched by the scale of human activity. The facility is home to 120 to 150 personnel at any given time, all housed in self-contained accommodation modules. These include living quarters, kitchens, recreation areas, medical facilities, and everything else needed to sustain life hundreds of kilometers offshore. From an environmental perspective, the Prelude does represent a shift in offshore energy production. By processing the gas at sea, it does avoid the need to build costly and disruptive onshore plants. That said, it's not been without its criticism. Environmental groups have raised concerns about the risk of operating such a massive industrial facility in open waters, and since its launch, it's experienced several technological shutdowns and delays. In 2020, operations were suspended due to safety concerns, and again in 2021 due to electrical system failures. But by 2022, Shell had resumed operations and expects the vessel to produce for 25 years without relocation. Even from above, this thing looks surreal. It's like a misplaced skyscraper that's floating on the Indian Ocean. Its size is hard to grasp without any context, but to stand on its deck is to be dwarfed by the latticework of pipes, tanks, chimneys, and safety platforms. It's an industrial marvel, on par with any land-based megastructure, only instead of being built into the Earth, it just floats above it. From every angle, engineering, economic, environmental, logistical, the Prelude F LNG is one of the most extreme vessels humanity has ever built. It is a floating city, a factory, a gas plant, and a storage facility, all riding the waves of one of the most remote corners of the world. And above it all, it's definitively, unquestionably, a fat ship, not just in girth, but in ambition. Number 1. The Bokeh Vanguard. The Bokeh Vanguard, it's not just a ship, it is a platform capable of carrying other ships, entire oil rigs, and structures that are too large for dry docks. It's operated by Dutch marine contractor Bokeh. This semi-submersible heavy lift vessel is the largest of its kind in the world by deck area and displacement. It measures 275 meters long or 902 feet, and an extraordinary 70 meters wide or 230 feet. It truly is a fat-ass ship, not in the traditional sense of cargo volume, but in its astonishing footprint and lifting capacity. Now, what makes it truly exceptional is the ability to submerge the entire deck below the waterline. To load cargo, the ships flood the ballast tanks, lower its deck, and positions itself beneath the floating object like an oil platform or disabled ship. Then it pumps out the ballast tanks, raises the deck, and the cargo out of the water in a single controlled motion. This process eliminates the need for cranes, tugboats, or complex lifting infrastructure, and the vessel was built by Hyundai Heavy Industries and launched in 2012, originally under the name Bokeh Vanguard before Boskalis acquired Dockwise in 2013. Now, the massive open deck measures 70 by 275 meters, providing almost 20,000 square meters, over 215,000 square feet of loading space. That's large enough to accommodate the Eiffel Tower lying on its side, or even entire offshore production platforms. In terms of weight, it can carry up to 110,000 metric tons. That is more than a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. Unlike most ships, though, it has no bow or traditional superstructure. The control room and crew accommodations are housed on a small offset platform located on the starboard side near the stern. And this asymmetrical design does maximize the usable deck area, and it allows the ship to transport cargo that overhangs its dimensions without any obstructions. Despite its massive size, the ship can sail at speeds of up to 14 knots, that's about 16 miles an hour, and it's got a dynamic positioning system that allows it to hold precise locations. It can operate in open oceans, maneuvering with remarkable agility for its size, and it is frequently contracted by oil and gas majors like Shell, Equinor, and ExxonMobil. One of the key reasons it's so important in modern industry, though, is that it allows entire offshore platforms to be built onshore, then transported whole. This reduces costs, construction time, and offshore labor risks. It also plays a critical role in decommissioning, as older platforms can be removed in a single lift rather than being cut up at sea. From above, it looks like a floating dry dock adrift in the ocean. But when fully loaded, it becomes a moving monument to industrial engineering. It's part ship, part infrastructure, and part logistics miracle. The record-setting capacity and unmatched versatility here firmly cement the Bokeh Vanguard as one of the fattest, strangest, and most useful vessels ever built.